Hi, everybody. It's Tessa, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Facebook Live Friday from Fertility Specialists of Texas. I'm so excited today that we're going to be giving you a sneak peek or a behind the scenes look at our IVF lab, which is on site at our Frisco location. You can see behind me is the authorized personnel only door. So I'm going to go in there and we're going to meet our scientific director, Dr. Carlos Guerrero, and he's just going to give us a quick tour and show us where all of the amazing miracles are made. So let me switch this around and we'll get going. Here we go. Door one. There's Dr. Guerrero. Hi, Dr. Guerrero.
What are you doing? I'm Carlos Guerrero. I am the scientific director for Fertility Specialists of Texas. I'm going to give you a tour of the lab. So basically, this is where we create life. This is where basically all of the miracles happen. So it's difficult for patients to see this side of what we do because this is a very enclosed system. We work with sperm and eggs to create embryos. So basically, we need to protect them from any contamination, pollution from the air, and so forth. So this is very enclosed. Our air system, it's dedicated just for the lab. It can keep everything out of the lab as far as contaminants, any volatile organic components, any dust. So it's extremely clean. Basically, we're right now breathing pure air. So we designed this to give a good opportunity for the embryos to grow well. If you think about it, we have an organism basically with organs that can take all of that, all of the toxicants, and basically remove them from the body. If we have an embryo inside a Petri dish, there's nothing protecting them. So anything that's in the air, even coming from perfumes, anything like that can go into the media, get into the cells of the embryos, and affect development. So that's why this is extremely important. So we have basically the two components of what we do, which is the physician side, where the physician will give medication to stimulate the ovaries, grow all of the eggs, we'll take them out, and then we have the lab. This is where we're going to grow them and make them embryos. So this section is extremely important because if it's not well designed, it doesn't have a good quality control, good staff, highly trained staff, which is what we have here, the embryos are not going to grow. So basically the patient won't get pregnant. So this is, in my opinion, 70% of everything that happens. So we took a few minutes, that way we could show you guys how everything works here. So we can start around here.
Just lead the way, sir.
So we have this room here, where we prepare with agents and media to culture the embryos. So we have many different types of solutions here, which is basically designed for the initial steps of retrieving eggs, fertilizing them, growing them, all the way to what's called a blastocyst, which is a day 5 embryo, and then to transfer them to the patient. So all of the solutions are here. We use this laminar flow hood, which is what you see here. So we already have a perfect air system, but even with that, we still have these laminar flow hoods for an extra protection. So basically there's no particles inside there, zero. So whenever we create these solutions for the embryos, they're perfect. There's nothing that's gonna happen with them, they're just perfect. So at the same time here in this laminar flow hood, we have the Petri dishes, you can see. We like to take them out a few days before so that they can outgas, so they're just breathing all of this pure air. So I will show you one, you can see it. I don't know how much they'll be able to see, but they actually have some little wells, and that's where we're gonna put the embryos. So this is very small volumes, about 20 microliters. You can see it's very tiny. So they are housed in those little wells. Then we put oil overlay, and then this goes into the incubator. So this is basically what we use. Tiny, tiny.
It is tiny.
So there's other type of Petri dishes for different steps, for ICSI, for fertilization process, retrieving the eggs, and so forth. So here we do all of that prep, and then we go back to the lab. So here we have basically the Ivf Lab. This is where we create embryos. So we have different stations, and we can walk this way. What we see here is a micromanipulator, which is basically what we use to perform ICSI, which is injecting a sperm directly into an egg. Also, we do embryo biopsy for genetic testing. So what we can see here, basically, are two tools that are gonna have tiny needles, and with the microscope and these joysticks, we can manipulate and grab an egg or an embryo and perform these procedures. All of these micro manipulators have also lasers that we use for the embryo biopsy of those cells. Actually, you can see images of some of the day 5 embryos. This is what we want to see on day 5. We can see these massive cells in the center. That's what's basically going to form the baby. And everything that's outside, all of those more than 100 cells, that's going to form the placenta. So those are embryos that we froze for a patient for a frozen embryo transfer later in the future. So we use this station for those procedures. Then this one, as you can see, there's a microscope inside this chamber. And basically what happens is, by having it enclosed, we can have a specific temperature in the air, as well as gases. So CO2 that we put in there to preserve the same pH that basically the human body. So that whenever we move embryos here for evaluation, they're still basically inside an incubator, but we can evaluate them inside this station. So if we go to this other side, we have a very similar setting, just a different type of station. So it's just more of a sit down, a little bit wider station, but with the same purpose of having it enclosed for temperature and gases. And then also another micromanipulator here for ICSI and for embryo biopsy. So the needles that I was talking about are these ones. So I don't know how much you can see, but they're very tiny. They're inside. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, no? It's inside there. So that's the needles that we use to put in there to hold the egg or embryo. And then we use the other ones for the injection process or the biopsy. This image that we actually have here in the computer is actually one of the needles that I was talking about. This is how you see it under a microscope. And we can apply suction, keeping the embryo attached to it. And then with the biopsy needle, we go this way, get a few of these cells here from the outer part of the embryo. And then with the laser, we can remove them. And that's what we send for genetic analysis.
Awesome.
Okay, so then we can look at the incubators. This is where the embryos grow. So we have some different incubators. We can start with these ones. So basically, these are small box incubators. We can have the proper temperature, proper oxygen, and CO2 or carbon dioxide to maintain the proper pH for those embryos so that they can grow very well. So this is where we culture all of them, and that's where they grow. We also have this other type of incubator here, which is completely different. As you can see, is basically each of these chambers, it's an actual small incubator. So we can put one patient here, so we can put 10 patients in here. Each of those stations, as you can see there, have their own temperature and it can maintain their own gases also. So it's a more advanced type of incubator that we're using right now.
How many can be in each of these larger?
So you can put several patients. However, we put up to 4. That way we limit the times that we open the doors. So only we put 4 patients in there. So after they grow, we do freezing, embryo biopsy, and so forth. From this section, we go all the way to here, which is our cryopreservation station area. So we bring the embryos to be cryopreserved here. Actually have a little bit of a device that I can use. Do you have enough light?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Here's your reason. So this is where we freeze embryos. It's a tiny, tiny stick, basically. So this, of course, goes labeled. We just did that so we couldn't see, but it goes labeled, patient name, date of birth, date, embryo number, and so forth. And then in here, that's where the embryo goes.
Oh my gosh.
In this little tiny, tiny space.
Wow.
Let me see if we can see it here. So that's the little paddle that we're looking at. That's how you see it inside by the microscope. So basically on the tip here, we put the embryo. And then that goes enclosed again here, and then cryopreserved in liquid nitrogen, which is what we have here. You can see how it evaporates so fast. It's extremely cold, and that's where we used to freeze the embryos, as well as where we used to store them. So that's liquid nitrogen. So we have about 12 tanks here. So these tanks is basically where we store all of our specimens as far as sperm, eggs, embryos. We have 12 of them. They all have their own alarm system. We check them every single day. We measure them to make sure that the liquid nitrogen is kept properly inside in all of those tanks. So that's how we house the embryos, and this is where they stay. We have embryos here since 2010. So everything has been going very well with the cryopreservation program.
And how many can you keep in each tank?
So that's a good question. I'll say probably around 800 or so, depending on how many we put per device. But we can store many embryos in each of the tanks.
So in the stick that you were showing, is it 1 embryo per stick?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. That's what we're freezing
so
right now.
one patient could conceivably have
Correct.
10 or however many.
Exactly. So
frozen
that's
embryos
why
they
it's
have.
difficult to know how many in a tank. Because if a patient has 1 embryo, then I'll show you where we put the little stick here.
Oh, hi, Kristen. She says 4 of my babies are in there. Oh, Kristen Cox.
They're
Aw.
here.
They're in here somewhere,
Somewhere.
Mom. Somewhere.
Say hi. So those sticks go in here.
Okay.
So like this. And then this goes down. This is labeled here. And this is where we put inside the tanks.
Okay.
So let's say one patient has 1 embryo. This is what they have. If they have more, we can still put more here. If they have several, we need more of this. So there's more space that we need. So when we take it out, it's basically how it works.
Hi, Deanna. Deanna Holcomb also has a baby in here. So it's in there, Deanna, just waiting on you.
That's great. Let's see. So that's basically how it works, from the beginning, making sure that we have a really good solid air system. We have all of this is pressurized, so I don't know if whenever you were coming in, they saw that there are 2 doors. So you open the first door, it's pressurized, so it keeps everything outside, throwing air outside. You close the door, when you open this one, everything that comes in is clean air. So that's how we start, and that's one of the main things and important things that we have here. And that helps us produce healthy embryos, as well as all the quality control that we do on a routine basis.
Hi, Michael and Marisol. They said they'll be here next week. Let me see if there's some other comments on here that we were missing. Let's see. Diana, Courtney. Hi, Lingshan. Mary says, my dream after 13 years of trying, this has to be my only choice, PCOS. Well, Marie, we would be happy to help you on your journey. Let's see. Jenny Farnsworth says, thank you for taking care of my babies. 2 are now with me. My last one is now. Oh, I can't see it all. But Jenny, we saw your comments and thank you. So if anyone has any questions, let us know. But Dr. Guerrero, I know we're kind of limited on time because we do have patients that are doing transfers. But just really quickly, if you could talk about, you kind of touched on a little bit about our safety procedures.
Correct.
And why that's so important, because obviously one of the clinics in another part of the country made huge news because of their systems kind of crashed, and you know, thousands of families were devastated because they lost their future babies.
Yes.
And if you can kind of just
reiterate so there's 2 different ways to store embryos. So it's what I showed you basically, which is this type of tanks. We fill them manually, and we can go back here. So basically with this hose, from the tank room, we open this and we have liquid nitrogen. So we have a lot of storage on the other side of liquid nitrogen. All of our tanks we have here are filled manually. So we actually have to go and check them every single day, add more liquid. And as far as our quality control, we have an alarm system that is 24/7. It calls us immediately if the temperature changes. All of them have their own specific probes. And then we check them every single day. And then we even measure them with this ruler. So we can see how many inches of liquid are inside the tank. So we can, if the liquid, the measurement is starting to go down faster, we know that there could potentially be an issue longer term, and we can change the tank for a new one if that happens. So we have 3 different ways of checking and making sure that everything is perfect with the tanks. The other type of system is automatic, basically. So it's a little bit of a larger tank, and it's hooked up to something like this, but it does it automatically. So it just throws every so often. The tank says, I'm losing pressure, and then it just throws more liquid. So with those tanks, there could be more issues, because if the lab doesn't have a good quality control program of checking every day, then if there's something wrong with the computer telling the tank to throw more liquid inside, then there's no liquid. And that's basically what happened, because nobody was checking. It's an automatic system that should be doing that. But if there's a problem, then the liquid just goes down and nobody knows about it. So what we have here, there's no way that could happen as we do this every single day. We don't have something doing it by ourselves and we come and check every month. This is daily. So we know specifically levels, how the tank, each individual tank is doing as far as preserving the liquid. So they're very well preserved.
Excellent. So just as a reminder, guys, like in these tanks, Lingshan has babies in here too.
Yes.
Lingshan, say hi to your babies. So it's kind of cool to think that in this tiny little space, which is not huge, but there are thousands of future babies in here, and our next president could be in here right now, a Nobel Peace winner, an Oscar winner, like who knows what's in these tanks right now. And so that's really cool to kind of think about, and that's something that we just don't take lightly at Fertility Specialists of Texas. We're all one big happy team and just thrilled to be helping people on their path to parenthood. And we're gonna let Dr. Guerrero get back to the business of making babies, and we just thank you so much for taking the time, Dr. Guerrero.
My pleasure.
And to everyone who joined us today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post them, and we will have Dr. Guerrero and his team of embryologists respond later. Thank you guys, and have a fabulous Friday.